today's discussion is about breaking down the MYP assessments, the mathematics assessment, and understanding how to approach it with confidence. By the end of this session, you should feel more confident and more assured about tackling the exam, right? So, first of all, I would like to know from you how many of you are taking the assessments in May 2026 this year? I think it does give you an option to raise your hand. That would be better. Okay, I can see Pari, Riddhi, Raika. Okay, Ria is there. Oh, many of you are actually. Okay. Arush is taking the assessment. Okay. 13 people I can see in this meeting are taking the assessments. Okay, that sounds like a good number. All right. So, are you guys acquainted with the assessment? Have you seen the interface? Have you worked with it? Or have you worked with something similar so that you don't get startled when you see it for the first time? Any comments by anyone on this?
I mean, our school does conduct like semester-based exams on assess prep, and we
Yeah,
have had like a few past papers on the IB software itself.
the
So,
IB software. That's great. That's great. That means you must be acquainted with it. Anyone who is not very confident about using the IB software or the interface? Anyone over here who feels confused while using it or would like some more clarity and some more tips on it? You can raise your hands totally. Okay. Looks like all of us are quite aware of it. I do have some information on some tips and tricks for attempting the answers. So let's quickly get started. Now, all right. Just a second. So during the 60 minutes, we will first try to do some e-assessment familiarization, and then we will focus on how to answer questions using the equation editor, the calculator, and stuff. We will discuss some common mistakes made by the candidates and a preparation plan from now until the exam. So let's get started. All right. So nature of the mathematics exam. Would anyone here care to explain the structure of the math e-assessment? What are its components like? What all things are assessed in the exam? Anyone here? Okay. All right. Okay, no worries. So basically, we know that it's going to be an on-screen exam and it will consist of three extended tasks. And each of these tasks will give us some stimulus materials to work on to answer the questions. For example, data scenarios, etc. Data scenarios, and you can get different sorts of interactive elements as well, right? Each task targets at least one criteria, and the stimulus materials, again, we have similar stuff. There is a global context that is announced for each exam, right? And we will see at least one task based on this global context on the exam. The context has already been announced in the month of November. We will come to discuss about the global context as well in a bit. And we know that all the questions, we don't really call them questions, do we? We call them tasks, right? And there are multiple related concepts on the task, and at least two different key concepts are uh, examined on each exam. So what are key concepts and what is this? This all thing has already been discussed with you guys at the schools, right? So we don't need to go too much deep into that. Now, something on the examination blueprint. Um, we know that the paper or the exam has tasks which simulate problem solving, real world application, and investigation. Criteria C is assessed through all the questions, while A, B, and D are assessed through selected questions only, right? Now, balance marking across all the four criterias. There's a balance in the marking. It's not like one of the criterias will be heavily assessed and the others will not be, right? Okay, now before going forward, I would like all of you to take a poll of questions, which are some general questions based on our exam. Let me quickly launch it. You are welcome to attempt it. Okay. Can you see the questions? Please give me thumbs up on this if the poll is visible to everyone. All right. Yeah, I can see you guys have started attempting. Okay. Okay, 12 people out of 18 have attempted it. All right. 14. Let's wait for 2 more minutes. All right. Okay. Okay. Now we can discuss the responses. So, I would like you guys to volunteer and, tell me about your thoughts on this. So I can see the first question was e-assessment is a 135 minutes long paper and 13. Two people have said yes. Can we please know which two people have said yes? You can just raise your hands. Okay. Okay. So it's not a 135-minute long paper, right? I think okay, I'm just going to call for volunteers now. Pari, can you tell me something about this?
It's a 2 hour test, right? 120 minutes.
120 minutes. Exactly. Then the next question um was the total marks for the assessment is 120, and I can see another two people have said yes. And many majority of the people have said no. So Raika, can you tell us what is the total marks for the exam?
It's a 100 mark paper.
It's a 100-mark paper, not 120 marks. Then do students get 5 minutes extra time to become familiar with the structure? So it's a 60 to 40 ratio. 60% people have said yes and 40% have said no. So Riddhi, what do you think about this? Riddhi, are you there? Okay, maybe Dishita then. Dishita, can you tell us about this?
Usually they give us 5 minutes to just go through each and every question and then we can start off.
So that 5 minutes is other than the 2 hour duration that you get for the exam, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we do get other 5 minutes. It's not a part of the 2 hours that you're going to get. Now, response one once entered cannot be edited. And many people have said that yes, it cannot be edited. And majority has said no, it can be edited. Okay, Ria, what do you think?
I think it can be edited.
It can be edited. That is true. You can enter your stuff, whatever solution you want to. You can always go back to it. It's not like once you've entered it, you cannot go back and edit. And if you're able to remember something, you don't really have the option to go back to it. It's not like that, right? Okay. So on-screen examination have an inbuilt spell check function. Everyone has said no. Everyone has said no on this, but it is true. There is a spell check function. Okay. Okay, you guys, there is a spell check function. It will be helpful for you. Then the next question, stats and probability are strongly tested always. 93% of the people have said yes. Okay. Maria, can you tell us something about this? I think Maria is here with us. Yeah.
Um, I I'm not sure, but I think that there's a section for statistics and probability.
There is a section for sure, but is it like it's strongly tested always? And if someone is preparing for the on-screen exam, they must focus too much on stats and probability, like a scoring section for the exam, do you think?
I think so.
Okay, we do have a specific portion for stats, but at the same time, the on-screen exam is very unpredictable. It doesn't have trends and patterns like many other exams, international exams do. Okay, so I would suggest to obviously go through stats and probability in the nice manner, but do not assume that it's going to be like a sail through thingy for you. Okay. All right, the next one was criteria B is heavily assessed compared to other criteria. 60% people have said yes. Okay. I think, um, please forgive me if I pronounce the wrong name. It's Yashna, if I'm not wrong.
It's
Yeah,
Yashna.
Yashna. Okay. So, what did you say, Yashna, on this?
I said that 30 is heavily like tested.
It is okay. Okay. And Tejas, what do you think?
Ma'am, I also think it's assessed heavily.
And Nirvan?
Uh, Compared to other criterias, I don't think it's assessed heavily. Like criteria every question. So yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yes. So, I think the current slide that you guys can see, it mentions that there is a balanced marking across all criterias. So we will see all four criterias being equally assessed on the paper. So there is no heavy marking for one particular criteria. We can see one or two marks being divided here or there to obviously cover the entire 100 marks, but we will see a balance across all four. Okay, are we good? All right, let's move forward. Okay, I will call for volunteers for this as well. What global context has been announced for this year's exam? I think,
Ma'am, can I
uh,
answer?
yeah, sure.
Identities and relationships.
Identities and relationships. Very good. Okay, now let's quickly have a discussion on this. What do we actually understand by this? Because if we are familiar with this global context, we'll definitely have a boost of confidence before sitting for the exam, right? So, Sejal Hridaya, can you help us with your understanding on this global context?
Identities and relationships, it basically again explores the, how, you know, a person's individuality is shaped and how the human relationships are made and everything. So yeah.
Very good, very good. That's quite exact. And Chaya, what do you think about this?
Like in context with math or just in general?
With math, first you can tell me about the general thing, and then we can try to think of what all possible contexts can be there with mathematics specifically.
Identities are basically like your own characteristics or characteristics of something, and
Hmm.
relationships are how things can be related with each other. And in maths, it's most likely with probability.
With probability. Okay. Okay. What about stats, Chaya? Can we not have something based on stats on this?
Yeah, I feel like it's more with stats and probability.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I think Lulu can help us now. Can you think of more context-based problems using this global context and the different topics that we have in mathematics for our syllabus? Lulu is here with us. Yes, Mahi, please go ahead.
Ma'am, topics like statistics can come.
Yes. Yes. So I could also think of a few areas which, you know, which can be assessed using this global context. So I was thinking of social interaction and well-being, right? Because this is quite uh, popularly discussed thing, I would say, that how social media and the real social interactions are shaping individuals' personality traits these days. And there can be stats for students across the globe or maybe a particular country, stuff like that. So a statistics-based question. And at the same time, there can be a question which, tells you about different variables shaping a personality. And then you can be asked to do some algebra with it, maybe linear inequalities. Yes. Then I thought of a healthy lifestyle balance, which again can be asked in the form of an optimization problem. I think Arush is here with us. What do you think about this, Arush? Arush Kapoor, please.
Um, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, I agree with what you said. Yeah.
Okay. Yui is here. What do you think, Yui? Okay. We do have a bunch of shy people. Randir, what do you think about this?
About what, ma'am?
About okay, I've thought of a context-based problem related to the global context. Healthy lifestyle and balance. And what sort of optimization problem can be asked based on this linear inequalities and optimization? Can you think about this?
Not sure, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone? Anyone would like to? Okay, I can see. Okay, okay. I'll just tell you what I thought about this. So let's say a student tries to balance study time, sleep, and social interaction. So those can be the different variables shaping up the student's lifestyle. And increasing one would reduce the time for the others. And then in that sense, they can ask you to optimize a timetable for the student using the optimization tricks that we have under the topic of linear inequalities. You guys agree with me? Okay, I can see some heads shaking. Great. Let's move forward and let's try to look at the different possible response objects that we have for our exam. So before I, present all the information, again, why don't you guys tell me what are the different possible exams available for the on-screen examination? You can volunteer, please. Okay.
Could you repeat the question?
What are the different, you guys can see my screen, right? The presentation right now?
Yeah.
Yes. So we are going to talk about the possible response objects that we have for our exam, right? So for the on-screen examination, what all different, you know, interactive elements do you have? Whatever you know about it.
We have diagrams,
Okay, Dishita,
tree diagrams.
free diagrams. Okay. Someone else also said something. Raika, please.
In criteria B, I think we have something like stages.
Yes. Yes, we do. And Riddhi, what do you think?
Ma'am, what's the question? The different answer formats. I just want to clarify.
Possible response objects. Okay, I'll just show something to you. So a response object is basically the space where you're supposed to produce your answers, right? We definitely have an equation editor and the area where you're going to type your answers, but we also have some dynamic elements other than that. For example, equation editors, tables, and these tables are not just simple, data stages, I would say, because you can plug in your values and they will dynamically, fill diagrams for you. You can see stuff like that as well. Then drawing tools with default standard shapes and according to the context of the question and additional shape library. You can see MCQs, text highlights, match the two items, right? So these are the different possible response objects. Now, okay, what can you see on your screen right now? Anyone?
the e-assessment framework, how it actually appears on the screen.
Yeah. So I have some slides from the e-assessment environment. And this is a past paper that replicates the exact on-screen examination, so that what you see here is very similar to what you're going to experience in the real exam. So we will try to look at the different elements that we have over here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to point out at certain elements, and you guys can raise your hands to explain what that actually is, right? Okay. So what is this over here, please?
Okay, never mind. Can I answer?
Please, yes.
How many overall questions are in the entire paper?
Okay, good. Is there always 8 questions?
Yes.
Mm,
No.
not exactly.
No.
Not necessarily. It can be different number of questions. Okay. So basically, this is where you can check what are the total number of questions and what are the marks against each questions. Okay. Now the screen that you have right now shows question 1. Is this the only part of the question? What do I do to check if this is the complete question 1?
You click on it.
You click on it. Exactly. You click on it and then it shows all the different parts, right? Okay. All right. Let's move forward. And then we have the different kinds of elements that you can have. We can have these short videos. You must have seen them all the time on your the past papers that you've attempted, and uh, the different platforms that you've been using. So we have video type questions, and we have questions where you'll see that one element of the question would just be stuck on one corner of the screen, and then you can just scroll the other parts um, back and forth to answer, right? And this media over here is interactive, so you can just move the point S across the circle if you wish to understand the different lengths that can be measured, right? Okay. Now, answering questions, the text equation editor, you guys are well versed with this. We know that when you want to answer a question, you can simply click on the box and start typing, right? And okay, so I have some questions. What do I do if I want to type in some math? Do I just simply continue the way I would type an English sentence, or is there a different way? Yes.
There's a different way to add the mathematics formula, for example.
Okay.
By pressing the sigma button.
Very good. Yes. The sigma button is there for that, right? It opens up an equation editor. That is what we call it. And it looks like this, right? It has all the different symbols. You have different options across the categories of symbols. You can type in your math, and then you have this option, confirm, insert equation. This is important, right? This is how you put this into your main answering area. Once you're done with that, okay, next question. And this question is okay. Let me just ask someone to volunteer. Nirvan, what do you think about this? About the usage of these symbols?
Like for example, if you're typing like a math equation and you don't click math type and you want to type like multiplication, so sometimes people use the asterisk. This clearly says that you're not supposed to use it.
Yes, exactly. But if you end up using it, what exactly will be the loss?
Maybe the examiner can't understand your point or your equation clearly, or
Okay.
yeah.
Yes. And you will end up losing marks on criteria C. Because
Yes.
criteria C judges you on the usage of correct terminology and symbols, right? All right, good. Then, yes, you guys can take a note. If you're not aware of this, these 3 symbols, please don't use them. Okay, moving forward. Now, once you have entered your math, if you want to look for a formula, what do you do? Mahi, can you tell us? Yes, please.
Using the like the image right after the calculator is where you find the formula booklet.
Exactly. This is the symbol for the formula booklet. This one is for the calculator. So we have both the options over here. I would like to discuss more things about the calculator before we go to the formula booklet. So when you open or click on the calculator symbol, um, it looks like this, right? So for this particular question, we can see that the student is doing the calculation for the surface area of the spherical cap, right? And they're doing 2 pi RH. All right. Now, what do I do I simply type all of this from the calculator into my equation editor? Yes, Randhir.
You can just click the button with the calculator and the arrow.
The calculator in there. Okay, we want to make sure that each one of us knows about this. So it is this button over here. Can you see my annotation? I don't think so. One second. This one over here, right? This button helps us to induce whatever we have done on the calculator into the main writing area. So does this induce the last step or a couple of steps? How does it work? Who can tell me this?
It inputs everything in that you've written in the calculator.
Exactly. So we have to make sure that we don't end up copying the calculation from previous questions because it will still be there, right? So you have to first delete whatever you have and then start with the new one. All right. Now comes the formula booklet. Yes. So you click on the formula booklet icon. We just saw it. This is the section of formulas that we have, and you can just select whatever you want to. Now, once you're done with the question, how do you go to different questions? How can I go to question number 7, for example, if I am done with my response for question number 6?
Click on
Anyone?
number.
Yes. Yes. Sorry, I cut you out. Was it Tejas?
No, ma'am, I wasn't.
Okay, someone was saying, please continue. Yes, you can simply click on the question from the drop down that you have on the right corner. It will also keep showing the time that you are left with. Or you can click on the cross button that you have over here to close this question and it will take you back to the main screen, right? There's one more way to go back, and that is to click on the MYP's icon that we have over here. This will also take you back to the main screen in case someone, panics during the exam. They must know all their options. Okay. Any questions? Anyone? All right. Now moving forward, um, yes. So there's something called the bookmark feature on the exam. Can anyone help me with what the feature is?
So if you feel like you haven't answered a question properly or you want to skip it or it's taking too long, you can mark it and then come back to it later.
Exactly. That's right. And where do we find this option? Where do we see the bookmark symbol?
It's next to the question info.
Exactly. So we have this. We can also bookmark parts of the questions, right? It's not necessary that you have to bookmark the entire question. To bookmark the parts, we will see the bookmark option right next to each part of the question, the way you can see it over here, right? This thing over here. All right. Okay. So I think the e-assessment familiarization section is done. I would be happy to take your questions if you have any. Now, this is the next question that I have for you guys. Anyone please raise your hands to answer this? Yes, Raika.
You're allowed to finish the exam, I think, 30 minutes early. You
Okay.
cannot quit it any time before that.
Yes, 30 minutes is the least time that you have to sit for, right? You're also allowed to quit the exam again. The condition is that you have spent 30 minutes on the exam, but this is not advisable. You should always try to complete as much as you can, right? Okay. Now let's look at something called how examiners actually give marks. All right. So I would like to know from you guys what is your thinking across different sort of responses that you can have. Okay. How do marks work? So we know that marks are obviously given for correct answer, clear working, and logical reasoning. But still, there are some loopholes. It's not that direct always. So if I say that correct answer with no working, uh, can still give you marks, or there are still chances of getting some marks there. Would anyone like to throw some light on this if they know um, anything about this, or anything like this has happened before? Yes,
Usually,
Riddhi.
I think it depends on the criteria that's being assessed. If it is criterion C, maybe you will lose marks for not showing the working.
Mm-hmm. Yes, next please.
I think it depends on how many marks the question is. Sometimes for 1 markers it is allowed, but for 3 markers or 4 markers you might need to show the working.
And it also depends on an important thing, the command term, right? We have to write our responses according to the command terms those are mentioned in the question. Because, okay, can someone tell me the difference between write down and calculate?
Calculate is when you show your answer through your working, and then write down is like you directly write your answer down.
Yes. So if I just write down one sentence or the answer itself, I don't show anything, that will be accepted when the question says write down, but it will not be accepted when it says calculate, right? So that also depends on the command term. It actually depends more on the command term than the marks, right? Okay, this is something called ECF marks, error carried forward marks. Can somebody tell me about this? Yes, Raika, please.
for example, you're working, or rather, the formula that you've used is correct, but somehow you end up with the wrong answer. They let you, obviously, and for the next steps, you obviously need the answer. They'll award you the marks as long as the process is correct.
The process is correct. Okay, but again, it's not that straightforward. So we have some more details to ECF, which we're going to discuss on the next slide. Okay, if you give two responses to a question, if you end up you're confused and you think, okay, this is also correct, this might also be correct, you end up adding both of those as your solutions, which one will be assessed? Does anyone know about this? No one? um Sejal, what do you think about this?
Probably the correct one.
Yes, that's what you call the best one. Maybe both of those are correct and you've used different methods for it. That could also be the case, right? So the best answer is accepted over here. We don't need to think about the sequence in which we are putting your answers, right? Okay. The notation rules. 1.9 is equivalent to 1 comma 9. So we don't need to think too much about the notation because ours is a global exam, right? So different notations are used as long as we don't use those three that we discussed on the previous slides. Then incorrect notation you can lose marks, of course. If it is totally incorrect according to the context and requirement of the question, you will lose marks on criteria C. Now let's talk more about ECF. Understanding ECF is important for us. As Raika said, that if you end up getting a wrong answer and you're using it further for the question, you can still get marks as long as your working is correct. Very nicely explained. But if your working ends up giving you an unrealistic answer later, or the question becomes simpler due to the error, then you will not get any marks on this. Okay? So we have to keep this thing in mind. Then you will lose the complete marks for the question. Then, while you are working on an ECF base, let's say you made an error and you think that going back and making it correct would take longer, then you decide to continue with the mistake to earn some ECF marks. Make sure to show the entire working, and your method must also be correct. If the method is also wrong, then what's the point after that? Right? Arush, what do you think about this? Okay. Sakit is here with us. Sakit, what do you think about this? Randhir? Okay. Sia, what do you think about this?
That's correct.
All right.
I mean, yeah.
Okay. So, Yes. So the key idea is that your method matters more than the final answer. Okay. Okay. So we have an activity for you people. There's a spot the mistakes activity. You're supposed to focus on the command terms. And I'll present the question on screen. It's based on handshakes at a school event. And then I'll show you a question and a student's response. You're supposed to find the error in the student's response. It might also be correct. So we just want to know your thinking on the response. Are we guys ready? Please give me thumbs up. Great. Okay, please read the question. You don't need to dive too much into it because we want to focus on the command term and it's the answer being appropriate to it or not. So basically, we have the data about a group of students who are attending a networking event at a school and they are basically greeting each other. They're shaking their hands. The number of students and the number of handshakes are mentioned in the table. So in the following part, write down in words 2 patterns you notice in the number of handshakes. I'll quickly go back to the previous slide. You can look at the number of handshakes 0, 2, 6, 12, and 20. And this is the response that one of the students gave. Please try to analyze the response and find error in this response if there is any. And if you think the response can be better, please be ready with the better one. Guys, again, it would be great if you could turn your cameras on.
An ideal answer should kind of outline if the sequence is in an increasing order or decreasing order.
Good point. Yes, yes. So that is missing in the response, right?
And also what type of sequence is being used.
Very good. That is also missing, so we can add that. What else is missing in the
And
solution?
also the number is starting with.
Very good. Good point. Good point. Yes. It does not say where it starts. So that is important for us to mention. One more critical thing is not there in this response. I'm just waiting for someone to come up with that.
It mostly discusses the recursive formula, whereas it should usually just state how the pattern moves on.
Yes. So the usage of the term previous number, current number is not appropriate, basically. Right? And if I was someone who did not look at the numbers, who was just trying to understand the sequence based on this response, I would definitely get confused. Right? Okay. Can anyone now tell me? I think I'm going to ask volunteers for this. Okay, Mahi, what would your response be for this?
Ma'am, this is about criteria B.
This is about criteria B. That is correct. And what would be your response for this particular question?
I would write about how it's what is the pattern being followed, like how many numbers is increasing.
Okay, so as Arush said that we need to mention the first term or where it starts from, right? So let's use that. Let's use the correct sequence that it is following. We obviously don't need to write. Yes, Riddhi, please.
It's a quadratic sequence starting from 0 with a second difference of 2.
With a second difference of 2. All right. All right. Okay, that is a decent response, but one thing is still missing. Let's see if someone can come up with it. Okay. Nirvan, can you try?
Ma'am, I was about to say the same thing. It's a quadratic sequence with starting with 0 with the second difference 2. But you can say it's an increasing order or
Okay.
something like that.
Okay. 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 I'll just read out my response now. What I felt was since the question tells you about the variables you're supposed to use, it's the number of students and the number of handshakes, right? The response should also mention the number of handshakes, at least. Like current number is not the correct way to mention it. So I would say that the number of handshakes increases by consecutive even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, as the number of students increase by 1. Yes? How does that sound? You guys can give me thumbs up on this. And if someone wants to come up with a different answer, I would be happy to know.
I wanted to clarify if it's okay using generic terms like even or odd numbers.
Even an odd numbers is completely acceptable, right? But the error was in the usage of not using the variables those have been already defined by the question, right? The number of handshakes. The student has very well understood the sequence. There is no gap there, but the gap is in expressing using the right words, right? Okay. So there's another one. So it's for the same question. So we have this table. Now, this is an extension of the same context. The number of students, previous number of handshakes, square interactions, repeated squares, total greetings. This is the kind of pattern that we have. And then there was the question on investigating the pattern of greetings. And this response is meant for the part A. Please excuse me for this. Describe in words a pattern for total repeated squares and total greetings. And this is the response the student gave. Please analyze the response. This is for the A part. Yes.
Sorry, once can you go to the table, ma'am?
Yeah. So you have to look at the pattern for the total number of greetings, that is the last column, and the total repeated squares. I can keep going back and forth. Repeated squares is the second to the last column. And that's the student's response.
Ma'am, I think just saying that pattern A is the same as pattern B is not an appropriate response. They're supposed to describe in words the actual pattern.
How would you describe it then?
Could you just go back to the table? Sorry.
Yeah. Worries. Yeah. Okay.
Like square interactions have been added by consecutive odd numbers as the stage number increases.
Okay. Yes. So we can clearly see that it's a quadratic sequence, right? For total greetings as well as for square interactions. So what we can do to describe it is, actually, I would like to know from one out of you guys if you can just maybe write it and then read it out for us. Okay, let's call for volunteers. Pari, can you try?
Oh, should I write it down first?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
If anyone else wants to come up with an answer, You're most welcome to do it.
Wait, which column do we have to describe again?
Okay, we have to describe total repeated squares and total greetings.
Okay.
Ma'am, why was there a mention of the square interactions in the answer though?
Let's see. Oh, because it was same as that for the square interactions.
Oh, right.
That is what the student used.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. 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 Pari is writing an answer for us, and I think I would like to know the response from Tejas. Could you try, please?
Um, I'm not very sure.
Just try.
Just could you go
can-
back pattern once?
Yes, you can also try to identify the error in the response. Actually, that is what we're trying to do. If you don't want to write your whole answer. Yeah. Should we go to the student's response now? Yeah. Riddhi, please.
So instead of mentioning that it's the same pattern, the total number of repeated squares is the same pattern of the total number of square interactions, we could actually state the pattern that is the quadratic sequence.
The quadratic sequence. And how
right.
would you explain the quadratic sequence?
It is a quadratic sequence with a second difference of 2.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yes.
Basically having the first difference of a consecutive sequence of odd numbers, second difference of 2.
Second difference of 2. We can also say that every time, again, we can
It's
make
square
use of.
actually. The squares of the original number, the first column.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
forgot the name of the first column.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay. So we can say basically that the total number of handshakes increases in a quadratic sequence because there's a common difference which is being added to the difference which is increasing. So here basically saying that it's quadratic is not enough. That is an important thing to understand because they want us to describe in words. That is the essence of the question, describe in words. So even if you say it's quadratic, explain what happens when it's a quadratic. Describe it. Okay. So if you just say it's quadratic, you'll get some marks, but you'll not get the whole marks for this. Anyone? Any comments on this? Anyone who would differ with me on this? Okay, I asked for an answer from Tejas and Pari. Can you guys please read out your answers?
So for the total repeated squares, I got that it increases in a order of perfect squares. So each value of the number of students is being multiplied by itself to get the total repeated squares.
Okay, that makes sense because first you mentioned that it's a pattern of squares and then you describe what the pattern actually does, that you multiply it with itself. Works. Okay, Tejas?
I was solving it, but then I didn't know you want me to give an answer, so I've written it down as in like in my head.
All right. And what does your head say on this?
So I got the same answer Pari did. I did figure out it was
perfect square, but I didn't really go beyond that because I thought that was enough.
Okay, that's not enough because we're describing in words. Okay? If we are describing in words, we have to describe each and every step. All right. Now, smart preparation tips. We are also falling a bit short of time. Okay. So now we're very close to the exam, right? So you guys must have your own preparation tips or some timetable or some strategy that you must be following right now. I want to know from you people, what is your strategy right now? Are you focusing on the basics? Are you focusing on the criterias more? Which criterias are you focusing more if you are doing that? Let's know from you people. Okay. So Chaya, what do you think?
For me, I'm gonna go thoroughly through the most like important concepts, the like bigger concepts, and leave out the small stuff. And then whatever I struggle with in the big concepts, I'll go into the small details about that concept. And for example, sequences are really important for criterion B, so I'll be practicing sequences, and then whatever I think is important for other criterions, I'll be working on that.
Okay. So what do you think is important for criteria A then? Sequences you mentioned. That's right.
Well, like as it says on the screen, kind of like algebra and geometry and maybe like functions and
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Okay. So since we know that, I think someone raised hands. Sorry, I missed that. Was it?
No, I just wanted to answer to that question, but she did.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone could tell me what is the best strategy to tackle criteria A for the E assessment?
Ma'am, doing art papers.
Mock papers. Okay. Okay. So we know that our criteria A is composed of mostly straightforward questions, right? And we don't really have to think too much. It's most like the basic questions, right? Basic math. So what is the best strategy to tackle those kind of questions? And at the same time, we have to make sure that we end up completing our paper in time, right? So I think Sejal, if you could share your thoughts on this.
Well, what I've been doing is like I've done like a few time tests which have helped me, complete all my questions in a certain time. And I also have like 30 minutes in the end that is like for like reviewing my answers. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay, great. Anyone else on criteria A?
As you said, criteria A is mostly just straightforward. So getting questions is not that very difficult online itself. Whereas for criteria B, it's a little difficult because IB does frame the questions in a certain way. But criteria A, for our advantage at least, you can just get questions online because algebra,
Yes,
number, logarithms, very prominent.
yes. And for criteria A, this could be a section that you can prepared prepare with timers, right? So if you find some questions online, you're attempting them, make sure to time them, right? Because we want to have at least one section in our hands that we're very fast and very through with it, and we don't really need to spend too much time with it because criteria B and D questions can be tricky sometimes. They usually end up draining a lot of time for you, right? Sia, what do you think about this?
So personally, for me, time management has always been a big issue. So what I do is I decide to do criteria B first, then criteria D, and then I go towards criteria A because I feel like criteria A is the most straightforward and easiest, and I think we require conceptual understanding in that,
Okay.
about what the specific topic is and how you're supposed to answer the questions. And main point is that you can find these types of questions in certain books, which your math teacher has given you, or past year papers as well. So for that, I think criteria A is comparatively simple
Yes. Yes.
than the other criterias. So you
So how
basically,
is this strategy working for you that you attempt B first, then D, and then come to the A in the last?
for me, it's actually working very well. And the
Okay.
reason why is because criteria B takes up the most time, but it basically carries like approximately, let's say, 30 marks. My weakest zone is geometry. So I decided to do geometry at the very end, because the point is that you don't need to score 100 in order to get a 7.
Yes.
Okay. And first, you should complete the stuff which you already know how to do first, so that you know that you've secured that much.
Yes, very
And
nice.
then, after that, go towards the things in which you know you struggle at.
That's perfect. That's perfect. You should grab all the marks that you can, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the pattern in which, or the sequence in which you are taking your sections is a good idea. Is anyone else also following a set pattern for attempting the exams on the paper, like Sia told us about?
Ma'am, I'm also doing in a similar way where I do criteria B first, then B, then A. So that
Then
it
A.
saves me a lot of time.
Good. And you are always able to complete it in time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, once you're done with B and D, being fast on criteria A becomes important, right? So again, the one tip for criteria A would be, I also have some stats on criteria A that we're going to discuss later on, right? That we need to work on fluency while working with criteria A questions, algebra, number, geometry, because these topics are always used in other topics. For example, if you're solving a question based on probability, your algebra and your counting skills and your calculation skills must be fast and strong. So if you are good with that, the rest of it will work out, right? Okay. So now, I did have something else prepared for you guys for criteria B, but I would just quickly go through the tips and not to the question. There was a question as well. Okay. So I have seen students getting confused with the terminology on criteria B questions, specifically when they want to know about testing, verification, justification, describing the patterns. So I've seen a lot of struggle there. Can anyone tell me about their struggles, or if they have tackled them, how did they do that exactly? Or if you could just explain the differences among these command terms, that would be great.
Ma'am, I always had trouble doing the justification.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand how to do them.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. We will come back to your question. Dishita, please.
So I know the main difference between testing and verification. Testing being that you use the values that are already given to you, and verification being the values that you predict in the table given.
That is correct. Bang on. Right. Riddhi?
This is actually in addition to what has been already asked before regarding justification. So the thing is, when trying to find out a general rule, I already apply the formula, the formulae that are needed to be applied. So I don't know what new to add in justification.
Okay. Anyone can help us with the justification part? Anyone who's able to tackle the justification part? Okay.
So sometimes there are patterns which have to do with area or something. So to
Yes.
justify that, you could get the same numbers using the area formula for that particular shape, and you could compare them. And if the answers are the same, you can say that this general rule is accurate because it gives the same result as the actual formula that is given.
Yes. 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 Right. So, nicely explained. Justification is when you have to, as the word says, justify what rule you found, but not using the sequences pattern, right? Because you've already used the sequences pattern. What you have to do in the case of justification is you have to explain it with some geometry or some other context that it is related to. Okay. I actually have a question. We can quickly go over this. We will not discuss it thoroughly, but I had this question. It is a criteria base one. We can see a pattern. There's three cones, and we can see the radius and the slant height increasing for these three cones. Okay. Now, after that, we have this information given to us. The radius is represented with R and slant height with L. The curved surface area in terms of pi has been recorded in the table. Okay. Now, they had these questions: predict, describe, write down, show the testing, verification, and justification. So, can anyone tell me? Okay, so what they did was they found the rule for the curved surface area, and we know how we will find the curved surface area, but they want us to focus on finding the curved surface area in terms of R. Okay. So obviously we will find it using the pattern that we have over here, right? We will see the difference in the terms and we will derive a formula for the same. But when we will justify this, we will be using the formula itself or the relation between L and R. We will not use the sequences. Okay. So we basically know that the curved surface area of a cone is going to be pi r times L, right? But when you want to express it in terms of R, you will write L as a function of R and then plug it back into the formula for the curved surface area. Yes? That will simplify the formula for curved surface area in terms of R only. When you would do that using the sequence, you will obviously get it in terms of R because you will be finding a sequence for curved surface area in terms of R. But when you want to justify it, you will not be using the sequences. You will be using L is equal to something times R and then plugging it into the formula. So you can use the different relationships, those are present in the question. You can use a geometrical approach, as Ria said, something based on areas or something based on volumes that can be used to explain the final outcome that you have. Okay, so you can only get better at this with practice, okay, because there can be different contexts. There is no one fixed context for the same. Any questions on this? All right, let's move forward. We are running out of time. For criteria D questions, we know that there is also a fixed pattern for the question. They ask you for accuracy, justifying the accuracy of the calculation, right? They ask you about some factors that can be, that can influence the given context. So I would just recommend you to get acquainted with the current global context that you have. It will be the most useful thing because we are expecting the criteria D1 to be mostly based on the global context, right? So interpretation of results is very important. That is what you have to work on for making your criteria D better. And one important thing is evaluating if the answers are realistic. That is also important because I've seen that students find answers to the criteria D question, but they end up having unrealistic answers. So this is something that we have to make sure. All right. So, one second, please. Right. Okay. Criteria A, we have already understood that the speed practice thing is going to help us. So our exam gives us 1.2 minutes per mark, but we should be acing that. We should be doing practice for 0.8 minutes, 0.8 to 1 minute per mark to ace that on the exam, right? So this is how you can time your practice and focus on algebra, fractions, indices, substitution. A quick tip here is that if you have your formulas memorized, that will be better because you will not end up opening the formula sheet and scrolling down for finding the formula you're supposed to use. That will save a lot of time if you have all your formulas in mind, right? Then criteria C tips is we don't get marks for formula. So please don't write the formulas. Don't think that if I write the formula, I'll get some marks for it. No. Marks are only awarded for correct substitution, final answer, going straight. So basically the technique is to substitute, solve, answer. Don't follow or don't think that if I just put, because it is a trend for some exams, right? If you write the formula, you get some marks, but not here. Okay. Copy paste has to be used smartly. Please don't type too much. So if your question needs the same answer, the same values repeatedly, please copy paste them. Don't write them again and again. And make sure that your steps are sequential and easy to follow for good criteria C marks. Some easy marks that you're donating: forgetting the units, rounding incorrectly, leaving answers unsimplified, writing answers without context. So these are the few things that you should follow. Now, by this time, you should have your checklist ready, a plan ready, that I'm doing this every day, uninterrupted for the e-assessment. These are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and this is what I'm going to work on. And this is how I'm going to work on my sources for the preparation. All of these things should be sorted. Okay, guys, so we are hitting the end of this session. you have an upcoming live masterclass for chemistry tomorrow, right at 5 p.m. You're most welcome to join it, and we will be looking forward to answering your doubts. Okay, so now is the time that I will take your questions. And yeah, okay. Please raise your hands. Let me know what you want to ask.
I have a question relating the session tomorrow, the
Yes.
biology session. So even though I'm not a bio student, I have taken physics, but will the biology session include the IDU pre-release material concepts?
Yes. Yes. First of all, tomorrow we have chemistry. Not, oh, sorry. Tomorrow is biology, right? You're right. 16th is chemistry. And yes, you can join it and will consist of all the IDU thing, the recent release that you're talking about. Of course, it will be there. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a question. Can you share some like sample questions or something that I can refer to for like criteria B, particularly for the different sequences?
Sorry, I missed your name. Who was this?
Dishita.
Dishita. Sure. I'll take a note of your name and I'll make sure that it gets to you, to the teacher. Who is your teacher at Sparkle, Dishita?
Oh, I'm not taking any classes at Sparkle actually.
All right. All right. We'll try to connect with you then.
Ma'am,
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Who is it?
Yeah, I'm Raika. I would like
Yes.
to have some criteria B questions as well, like sample questions.
Criteria B questions. All right.
I'm registered through Sparkle, and my teacher is Priya.
Priya ma'am is teaching you. All right. Yes. Anyone else over here? Okay. So, something that I would like to discuss with you or just let you know that we are going to have a test series for all the enrolled students at Sparkle. Test series for MYP, all the subjects and all the variants. And the second thing is that we have our programs for IBDP. So once you're through and you're planning to do some structured preparation for your IBDP, you're most welcome to inquire and join the courses. And this is the contact info. You can take a screenshot of this information. Okay, guys, thank you so much for attending the session. And it was great to have this interaction with you. And loads of good luck for your exams. And we will be open to your questions if you want to discuss it with us anytime in future. Thanks, guys. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye.